seconds that I never know if we're actually live or not. It says live in the thing, but it says live video is starting. Okay, so hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So I got a question. My partner and I may be interested in bringing on a cold caller. Could I get some more info on that? Rates, minimum hours, length, where are they based out of? Thanks, brother. Okay. So hiring a cold caller, first I want to really tell you how important this is. You must cold call yourself first. I could recommend that everybody does it for at least a month. It's not pleasant, but you need to know the difference between what a good cold call sounds like and what a bad cold call sounds like. And the only way to do that is to spend the time. So I would recommend a minimum of 16 hours a week. So if you have a full-time job, 2 hours a day on weekdays afterwards, so 6 to 8 p.m., 5 to 7 p.m., and then 3 hours a day on weekends. That's 16 hours. The reason why it's good is because I think on average 8 hours of cold calling, if you're using a predictive dialer, which we can talk about later, should get you 1 lead. So you should be getting 2 leads a week. That's why I recommend it. If you don't have a full-time job, then spend 30 or 40 hours on it, right? The more you do it, the better you get at it. Predictive dialing system like Mojo, Call Tools, Ready Mode, much more efficient, like 20 times more efficient. Dialing with your finger is stupid. This is a system where you're going to dump any of those systems, you're going to dump a bunch of numbers in it, and it's going to call out on multiple lines. And when somebody answers, it connects you. And people always ask the questions, what happens if 2 people answer at the same time? Almost never happens. There's easy ways around it. But it's much more efficient for the system to dial out 10 lines at one time and connect you. So, having said that, right, assuming you've spent enough time cold calling that you can now listen to another cold caller's calls and see if they're good or not, how do you hire a cold caller? So there's 2 main ways to do it. The first is to just hire a sort of a done-for-you system. So I really should look at, I have a bunch. So there's Call Magicians is pretty good. There are really companies that train the cold callers, manage the cold callers. Do I have this? I think I have this folder. Cold callers. I don't have it. Maybe cold calling? No. Cold calling services, I do. So I have Call Magicians, Phone Beasts. What else? There's another company. I forgot the name. There's so many companies. You can literally Google. Those guys are going to be, there's pros and cons to them, and you can go hire somebody yourself. So the advantage to using the system is you don't have to train so much. You assume that they have weeded out the people whose English is not good, and that they have some kind of script. You don't need a script for them, and I shouldn't need this while I'm recording a video. I apologize. That's the advantage. Also, advantage is if somebody's sick, somebody disappears, they're going to replace them. They should have somebody ready to go instead. Disadvantage is you're going to pay a lot more money, right? So very common for a cold caller from one of these places to cost, between $8 and $10 an hour. That's cheaper than you're going to get in the United States. But if you don't want to train, and there's time involved and usually a cost involved in training, so it's not nothing, and you don't want to worry that this guy's going to disappear one day. And I had a good cold caller one day who literally disappeared. For all I know, he died of COVID. I have no idea. I could never reach him. Then that's an option. I know Call Magicians. I know the guy who runs that, Stratton Brown, a great guy. They're pretty good. I just used another company. What the hell were they called? I used them, whatever. So, more expensive, advantage, you don't have to train. What I found is you have just as much of a success rate with them as you have doing the other way. So the other way is to hire a cold caller yourself. So the places you go, the 2 best places I would say to go are Upwork.com and then onlinejobs.ph. Onlinejobs.ph costs a little bit to get to use. Upwork is free. And then you're basically going to put out a cold caller. How much should you pay? So in the beginning, a cold caller should be around $4 an hour for a starting cold caller. If they're experienced, it's going to go up to $5, $6, or $7 an hour. That's what I would say top cold callers should get. You're going to have to interview them, right? And you have to make sure their English is very, very good, right? If most people you're going to speak to are going to be in the Philippines, but there's going to be people from all over, and they're going to all have different accents, right? A lot of people are really into using people from Egypt now. I've spoken to some people there. They sounded great. There's all kinds of countries where people speak English very well. Philippines is unique. Most of my team is in the Philippines because the official language there is English, B, they pay for advanced education, or it costs nothing, and if you pay somebody $4 or $5 an hour there to start, they're doing really well. The median monthly salary for non-agricultural workers, which is less, non-agricultural workers in the Philippines is like $300 or something. Cost of living there is very cheap. So it's a big place and they're exactly 12 hours off of Eastern time. So right now it's 3:45 p.m. It's 3:45 a.m. and a huge portion of the country works nighttime hours. I actually went to visit my team for the first time July 4th, and it's an interesting place because people there are really, really easygoing and tolerant. I know you can't generalize a whole country. I think there's 30 million people in the Philippines. People there are very tolerant. They're so tolerant, they just elected Ferdinand Marcos Jr., his son. Now, many people don't know who that is, but that was a guy who led the country like 30 years ago and really raped the country for billions of dollars. And they basically now are past it. And they elected his son. I met some U.S. expats who live there, and they were like, nobody here has mental problems. Everybody here is easygoing. It's really, and there's something to that. There's something to talking to people, and I think that people in the Philippines are amazing. That's why I hired so many of them. Sorry. So Philippines a lot, but you can get people anywhere, and also you can get a U.S. expat. I mean, somebody left, so living in, let's say, Costa Rica, or that lives in Europe, and you get somebody in Upwork who speaks English perfectly. I hired somebody for a long time who lived in the United States for 20 years and then moved to Jamaica. She was good. So that's about the gist of it. I would start with $4, $5 an hour maybe, and then I'll say how many hours. So most people are going to want a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, but you can certainly try someone out at 20 hours a week if you want. You have to understand, if you're giving them 20 hours a week, they could take another job for 20 hours a week. Some people will work 50 or 60 hours a week. So you got to figure it out, and you got to ask them what their availability is. So again, but as they're better and they learn and they're good at getting you leads, you're going to have to, you should increase their pay at some point. So I would say that the success rate of finding a real keeper is the same on both those channels. So I lean towards hiring somebody yourself, but some people are afraid to interview. But here's the thing that most people screw up on. They hire them, and then they just let them go, and then 6 months later they realize they didn't get any results. The real key to hiring any cold caller is to spend at least a half hour a day in the beginning going over their calls. So if you're using one of those services, for sure, you must have the ability to record their calls, and you want to basically look at the longest calls they had and go through them. And you're not there to say, hey, you screwed this up. You're here to say, hey, I'm trying to help you improve. This is what you should have done here. This was good. That was great. Good call. Not a great call. Whatever it is, maybe you should have let this guy go early. You have to invest time in it. And I've spoken about this before. There's two completely conflicting thoughts that you have to have in your head when you hire somebody. And that is, number one, this person may not work out. And you cannot be married to the man or woman if they're not good. You got to let them go. I highly advise you to say, I'm hiring you for 30 days. If that works, I'm going to hire you for another 30 days. If that works, I'm going to hire you for another 30 days. And if we're after 90 days, then we'll go longer term, full time. So it may not work out, and you have to be able to do that. Some people can't. They just can't let somebody go, and that's a mistake. And at the same time, you have to commit yourself to spending time and training them. And people make the horrible mistake every time with VAs of just assuming they know what they're doing, and they don't, right? And you need to teach them. So most people don't do that, right? I have a mini course really on it, and it's interesting. And I came up with this realization that you really need to be thinking both those things. And it's not easy to think both those things, because if you think the person isn't great, you don't want to invest the time to train them, right? And if you think that, I may have to let this person, well, that's the same thing. And if you think, what's the converse of what I just said? That if you think you may have to let them go, you don't want to train them. I don't know, I'm drawing a blank. But you need to think both those things, and it's not easy to do that. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in finding out more about one-on-one coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in finding out about a study at home program where I teach how to do what I do, Go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com, COURSE. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any channel, please click the thumbs up. And please keep the comments coming. I post 5 times a week. I don't always know what to talk about. Ask me any question. It does not have to be about the video you're watching. I try to get back to all comments as quickly as I can. And if it's something simple, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something I've covered recently, I'll send you a link to a video. And if it's something new or I haven't covered in a while, I'll do a brand new video on it. Thank you very, very much for watching.